All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show. And again, I'm Huzefa. This is Justin, the professional fighter, and we're kind of building it as we go. So now we got set up on StreamYard, which is really cool. And we got some fun topics that we're going to talk about today because there's been a lot announced in the world of mixed martial arts in the last couple days. So we decided we wanted to jump on and talk about all this stuff. It's super cool. So, Justin, how are you doing?
Hey, man, doing really good. 1 week post-stop. We're back at it. We're back on the stream. We're getting these videos out. Let's go, baby.
Can you tell people just a little bit about what you mentioned post-op, like what just happened and what you just went through?
So, yeah, of course. I had 4 years of collegiate wrestling. I've been a professional MMA fighter since 2012. Finally, one of my discs in my C6 to C7 went out. I had a fully collapsed disc. I shut down mobility on my left tricep. I had no extension power going out for almost a year. Went through physical therapy, went to a chiropractor, did steroid injections into my shoulder. Nothing was working. So last week I went under the knife, got my goods cut here. They cut me open here, pulled it up, pulled everything to the side, separated the disc, pulled out my original disc, put in a fake one, put it all back together. I feel like $1 million, man. I'm gonna be back in the cage in 3 months.
So this is like a thing where immediately after you came out, you just felt 1,000,000 times better?
Well, immediately as I came out, I probably was still a little doped up on. So, yeah, I can say I felt pretty good. But so prior to doing the test, I had my surgery on Tuesday. The Saturday prior, I was doing a tricep extension test. And I couldn't do 20 pounds. I couldn't do 2 plates. I couldn't do 1 rep. Immediately after my surgery, the Thursday after Tuesday, I go into the gym, put on 20 pounds, start repping it out like it's nothing, put on 40 pounds. So we're talking about immediate relief. If anybody's debating on disc replacement therapy, I think the technology's come so far. My downtime was less than 48 hours, and I'm already back. I was back to work within 3 days, and here we are, baby, ready to go.
And you said you think you'll be able to train in 3 months, or have when do you see your next fight?
You know, I'm really hoping. I'm being a little aggressive, but I'd really like to be back by April or May. I'd like to be back in the cage by April or May.
Sweet. Okay. Well, good luck, and I'll be there.
Absolutely.
100%. And somebody, Michael Bisping was talking about this recently, just in terms of the amount of injuries that fighters go through. And I think I think even me, as much as stuff as I watch, I think I'm still not fully even aware of all the, day-to-day things. But is this a common injury that a lot of fighters have, or is this more on the unique side, rare side?
No, it's very common, especially coming from a wrestling base, because there's so much head pressure in wrrestling. Dan Henderson had the same surgery done. Aljamain Sterling, one of my mentors leading up to the surgery, he trains at Extreme Couture. We trained together. I know he had disc replacement surgery last year. I was able to talk to him about his comeback. Aljo told me he had his surgery 1 year later, beats Peter Yan for the UFC title. So the sky's the limit for me. I think I'm feeling great. Zach Jusola, he just had a big win in the PFL over the weekend. He had the same surgery 8 years ago. So it's only getting better, man. It's a very common surgery for wrestlers, just because of the head pressure and getting snapped down and getting your head mashed into the ground, I guess.
All right. Well, cool, man. Well, congrats that it's over and you're on the mend, and awesome. Okay.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, we had some really cool announcements. So let's talk about the first one. I believe this is UFC 287 was the announcement in April, if I'm getting that number correctly. Adesanya versus, and by the way, I've heard Pereira be pronounced a couple different ways, Pereira and Pereira. So I can't remember exactly which one is correct, but obviously we have the rematch of Adesanya versus Alex, which is super cool. And that's going to be, like I said, UFC 287. So I just want to get your first thoughts. And before you jump in to just what I've been hearing, it's kind of interesting. And I don't know how to feel about it, but I feel like most people that I've listened to are giving the edge. I think the Weasel just did a video, and so did MMA Guru, giving the edge to Pereira, primarily because of the leg kicks that were doing a lot of damage. Also, they were sort of, and I want to hear your take on this, basically because Pereira is coming from a more novice base in mixed martial arts, saying the learning curve is going to be steeper, meaning he'll make more improvements in the wrestling game from the first fight to the next fight versus what Adesanya might be able to achieve, and sort of giving him the edge for those different reasons. And MMA Guru made a really interesting point too. Just I want to get your thoughts on all this, saying that in the first round, okay, the first round where like Pereira actually was winning, and then he was kind of going for the finish, which allowed Izzy to counter and come back in and allowed him to capture the first round, which otherwise he wouldn't have. So these are the things weighing in favor. And just based on the first bout, like, what are your thoughts? Where do you stand?
Here's the thing. Adesanya has a tremendous amount of MMA experience. Why are these guys deciding to kickbox? I really thought Adesanya was going to try to put together some wrestling, some cage wrestling, take him out of his element. But he's standing with an incredible striker. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Pereira got a takedown at some point in the fight, which really threw me off. I'm going to give the edge to Pereira. I think Adesanya is going to try to go up there and fight with a sword in his shield. He's going to go out on his shield if he gets knocked out again. He really wants to get this back. He's been knocked out twice now by Pereira, at least twice now by Pereira. As an athlete, he's itching. He wants to get that knockout back. He wants to get his belt back. He wants to get his title back. But Pereira is just so big. He's a mountain of a man. He's heavy in his left hand. He's heavy in his right hand. He knows how to chop trees down with those kicks. I'm giving the edge to Pereira. I'd love to see Adesanya come back and get his title back. I think it'd be a great story. Unfortunately, we keep seeing these trilogy bouts. So we look at like the Brandon Moreno fight. They fought 4 times. I'm sick of seeing Brandon Moreno fight Figgy anymore. Even though they're all awesome fights, we keep going to these 3 fights, man, and I'm just getting kind of bored with it. Again, if Alex wins, there should be no more rematch. Next guy in line, Kobe comes out, whoever they have down the point. But again, I'm giving Pereira the advantage here.
I agree with you in the sense of sometimes the trilogies and these multiple fights get a little bit too much. Sometimes it's amazing. I think it just depends. Okay, I want to get into some of the psychology here because this is where I'm interested. One of the things that I admire a ton about Izzy is his mental fortitude. He went on the MMA Hour the Monday after that big loss and was just chill. And it was actually one of my favorite fighter interviews of all time, because he came on and he was just so graceful and so accepting of the defeat, ready to get back in there. What do you think? Like and I have other questions too from the psychology standpoint,
sure,
involving Pereira too. But like from a fighter standpoint, somebody coming on showing that strength of character, and I imagine it must be so difficult when you deal with the loss like that. Does that sway you in any way in terms of favoring Izzy or giving Izzy more of an edge just because of that mental fortitude, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, sometimes. So, I've had a couple trilogy fights in my day, and the second fight, like if I lose the first fight, the second time I fight, I feel more confident. I feel like I already know what to expect. And I feel like since I already know what to expect, I can game plan, which in turn favors to my confidence. With that being said, Pereira is going to make adjustments too where he messed up, because if I'm not mistaken on this, I know Pereira was rocked. I believe he got saved by the bell. He was wobbled on his feet. Referee stepped in. That going back. So to go to it, Pereira's going to make adjustments. I think this fight's going to come down to who makes the better adjustment to the adjustment, if that makes any sense.
The fact that Glover is now retired, and people have been saying this too, he might take a couple weeks off and then he's going to fully focus theoretically on coaching. How big of an impact do you think that's going to have?
Glover and him have been training partners forever. You saw that Pereira was in Glover's corner when he fought Jamal Hill. I don't think it's going to play any more than it would or any less than it would just because he's retired, because I know once Glover's cut gets healed up, that he's going to be in there sparring. He's going to be in there training. It's just going to be another day in the office. Just because he's retired from competing doesn't mean he's retired from training, retired from coaching like you're talking about. I believe Glover's going to come in. He's just going to be the same person. He's just not going to be in the cage, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can't wait for this fight. And it's one of these special fights. It's kind of like the first one too. I'll just say from a fan perspective, I love Izzy. So I guess I was kind of, but I don't even know. I thought the result was amazing, and I was happy for Alex too. So I'm kind of in that zone too, where I just want to see the fight. I want to see the skill. I love kickboxing. I love Muay Thai. I love all that stuff. So I cannot wait. I'm so excited this fight was announced. And this takes us to the second fight, which is the co-main event on the card, which is Burns versus Masvidal. So I know Burns has been asking for some more fights after his last victory, which he got pretty cleanly and pretty handily. And it's been announced that he's fighting Masvidal. So just on your first thoughts, like what do you think of the matchup, the stylistic matchup?
I'm gonna be honest, I hate this fight. I think it's a fucking stupid. I hate it. I think it's a stupid fight. I'm going to say it, and people are going to get mad at me for it. I don't think Jorge's that good. I think he's overrated. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's a journeyman. He's 2-3 in his last 5. He beat Ben Askren, who to me, he's a wrestler. I mean, he knocks Ben Askren out, handily. His win before that, I'm trying to think who it was. I can't even remember who his win before that was. And then he lost to
he beat Nate Diaz.
Oh, Nate Diaz. Yeah, it was Nate Diaz. Yeah, those were the 2 wins. Like, Nate Diaz is up a weight class. Like, he's a small guy. I think Nate Diaz is a true 55-pounder, going up to 170, fighting Masvidal, fighting the bigger guy, getting cut, getting by doctor stoppage. I mean, his 2 wins out of his last 5 fights aren't impressive wins. I mean, it was an impressive knockout. Don't get me wrong. It was spectacular. It was one of the best knees ever thrown in MMA. But I think that's being looked at too. Oh, well, he knocked him out in 5 seconds. He's that much better. No, that was a lucky shot. And any real MMA fighter and real MMA fan realizes when you get knocked out in 5 seconds, no matter who you are, it's a lucky shot, dude. Like, we're talking about the best fighters in the world. Nobody gets knocked out in 5 seconds from a skill standpoint. Now you look at his last 3 losses. Who has he lost to? Where are his last 3 losses? He's lost 3 in a row.
Usman twice and Covington once.
So we're okay. Usman twice, Covington once. We're coming from a wrestler base. Gilbert Burns is a wrestler. Masvidal is a striker. He's a great striker. I think his wrestling is trash. I'm not trash. Excuse me. I don't mean to sound so brash, but I don't. He's not a wrestler. Burns. I personally have trained with Burns. I've personally wrestled with Burns. I've personally grappled with Burns. This guy is an animal. He is a step above the rest. He has heart for days. You watch that Khamzat fight. Man, he went out on his shield. Although he lost the decision, man, he was in it to win it for the whole fight. I think Burns subs. I mean, he just subbed Neil Magny in the first round. Neil had some momentum going into this fight. Gets subbed by an arm triangle in the first round. I think Gilbert Burns finishes Masvidal within 2 rounds.
Yeah, I kind of feel as though, I mean, I feel like I would favor definitely Burns for sure. I do think it's an interesting fight just because I'm a big fan of Masvidal. And what about, okay, so I want to know from the fighter perspective. Masvidal, I believe, is 38. I think Burns is 36. He did mention after the last Colby fight, he's like, I have to fix my wrestling. I need to go back. I need to work on that. Let's say theoretically that's been happening. How much growth do you think is possible from that last fight, which I want to say it was like 7-8 months ago. I can't remember exactly when he fought Covington, but it's been a while. Do you think it can be significant ground gained in that period of time if you're like, this is where I'm putting my focus?
It's so funny, and I think this is why we work well together, because whether you ask this question or not, this was what I was going to go into next. We're talking about 7 months of growth. We're talking about Gilbert Burns. He's been grappling before he could walk, probably. He's not going to catch Gilbert Burns. I don't think it's going to be close. Gilbert's experience in grappling, his experience in wrestling, I think, there's no chance in 7 months. And not to mention, I very highly doubt that he's wrestling every single day. If you want growth in something, you have to do it every single day. He's probably wrestling like we do at Extreme Couture. We wrestle 3 days a week, and that's because our skill building is done on our own. We have pro practice, then we have our skill building. How much time is Masvidal really putting in at 38 years old? You're getting mixed up in there with some killers in the gym, getting tapped out, getting taken down, getting slammed. Your body can only take so much, especially at 30 years old. I'm 33, and I wrestled in college. I wrestled in high school. I don't even like to wrestle anymore. I can't imagine being 38 and being like, all right, I'm just going to dedicate myself to wrestling until I'm good at it. Even if he did wrestling every single day, I don't think he's going to gain enough ground to even light a candle to Burns.
And in terms of the striking department, because Gilbert Burns has got some really amazing striking. How do you feel like the differential is in terms of their striking skills?
Now the striking is a little bit similar, but again, I'm still gonna have to go with Burns. He's heavy-handed. He has hooks for days. He hits you with that hook, he's gonna put you to sleep. And Masvidal, I mean, he is susceptible to getting knocked out. And how good is his chin since taking that shot from Usman? Was that last year? I can't remember the exact date on it. But coming back from shots like that's devastating. And then losing to Colby, we got to think about, is he in it for the payday right now, or is he in it to win a championship?
Yeah, this is always too what interests me as well when let's say journalists or even fighters talk about that idea of you leave something in the ring with a really bad knockout. And I always wonder, to what degree or what extent that's true. So he had that bad knockout, and I know people say that, but you really think, or I guess my question is, how drastically can one bad knockout, pretty bad knockout like that, diminish your chin?
Well, everybody's different, man. There's no rhyme or reason for anything. You know, I'm very fortunate to be a part of a brain study in the Cleveland Clinic. Every year I have to go down there and get my brain scan. I have to talk about how many times I've been knocked down training, how many times I've been knocked down competition. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often. I'm pretty particular about my partners. But talking to the doctors, some people, we had this up and coming girl. I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want to embarrass her, but she was a stud. She's killing everybody in the gym. She goes in, she gets knocked out one time in a fight. She's never fighting again. She hasn't been back to the gym since. She goes, nope, I can't take any more damage anymore. One time. She didn't get knocked out fucking 10 times, and it wasn't even bad. She got dropped, got clipped on her way down. Referee stopped it. She stands up, walks home, and she'll never fight again. She had true promise to really make some moves in the women's division. Now we're talking about a guy that's 38 years old. He's been knocked around. He's been knocked down in sparring. He's been hurt in fights. I mean, he's a mentally tough dude, and he's a gangster. He's going to show up and swing, but always in the back of your mind, you always have that one thought of what if. And we're talking about Gilbert Burns, who's hungry. Gilbert Burns knows he's going to be a favorite in this. He has to finish this fight. If it goes to a boring decision, is he really up for title contention and beating Jorge Masvidal? He has to put a stamp on this fight, and he has to do it dramatically to get back in title contention.
Okay, fascinating. I mean, yeah, I think I agree, and I'm really curious to see how this plays out. I just heard recently too. We won't jump into this. Maybe we'll save this for another video. But Bilal Muhammad was just saying that he's really trying to angle for the Colby Covington fight. I think the UFC mentioned a couple weeks ago, at least in the last interview that he did on TMZ, he was mentioning that might be happening. So I'm curious to see that. Okay, but this takes us to our next category, because we're talking about this idea of a chin being weathered and all this. It actually dovetails nicely into Conor McGregor saying that he has been asked to be on The Ultimate Fighter. Now, the first thing I'm curious to know from you is, because I'll be honest, I'm not like a big fan of The Ultimate Fighter show, no disrespect, but it's just not something that is super exciting to me. What I will do when the episodes come out, and I do want to watch it, I will a lot of times fast forward to the fighting parts and just watch the fights. I'm not like so into that whole reality drama thing. But like, as a fighter, do you watch The Ultimate Fighter?
I've only watched it when I have teammates on it. Like Ryder Newman was on The Ultimate Fighter. Miles was on The Ultimate Fighter. I tried out for The Ultimate Fighter. I didn't get on probably 5 or 6 years ago. I really liked the show early on. I thought it was raw, like season 1 through 10. And now I think it's just kind of a comedy show. I look at some of those guys that are on the show, and they're not even fighters. Like they're fucking terrible, and they don't deserve to even have the UFC banner, held over their head, even if it's just for their 5 minutes of fame on TV. These guys are clowns. When you go to the Ultimate Fighter reality tryout, people are coming in wearing Superman costumes. It's like, dude, you guys are not fighters. You guys are showmen. And I understand that's a part of it. It's TV. They need that drama. But guys like me, we're here to fight, man. We're here to knock people out and knock people's teeth out. I'm not going to put on some stupid costume and shit like that. So to go back to your original question is no, I don't care to watch The Ultimate Fighter.
Now I'm kind of in agreement with you, but now how would that change? Let's say we do get Conor, and the talk from what I heard or what I've seen is it's going to be potentially Conor versus Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
Would that change it? Would that make you interested in potentially seeing it?
So I think Conor needs to be a coach on The Ultimate Fighter. Conor needs to have a camera in front of him. It's his best friend. It's his best asset. It's his mouth, his words, how quick he is, how witty he is. This is where Conor McGregor needs to be. He needs to have a camera in front of him at all times, because that's entertaining. I mean, since Conor McGregor, who's been more entertaining? Name someone that's been half as entertaining.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz. Like, I watched every single interview they ever had. I look forward to all the fights. They were always great fights because Conor's mouth. Like, you look at like Bilal, like we were talking about earlier. Dude, he's in the top 5. I take him or leave him. You know what I mean? Like, he's probably a nice guy. I'm sure he's super tough. Obviously, he's super tough, but he has zero personality. I couldn't care to watch him one time. If I saw him as main event, I probably won't even watch the card.
And I'll say too, if Conor is on the next season of The Ultimate Fighter, I will 100% watch that. And I think with Tony Ferguson would be actually, it would be hilarious because Tony is not going to be shy, and I think it'd be so funny. But I do want to bring it back to that point of the notion of the chin after going through damage. Like, what are your thoughts on a potential matchup? I believe they're saying it would be at welterweight, potential matchup between Conor and Tony.
I mean, anything to get Conor win, man. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's what it's going to come down to. Like, the UFC, I feel, is so desperate to get him a win because they have to keep him relevant. If Conor McGregor fights Tony Ferguson, he can knock him out. He definitely can. Tony's chin is obviously not the same. You saw what Michael Chandler just did to him. Like, that was one of the most brutal knockouts you're ever going to see, man. That was devastating. That was just like Jorge Masvidal getting his head spun around. He looked like the Exorcist. Like, it's tough to come back from that. And I'm fortunate enough, even with all my experience, I have never experienced something or tried to come back from something like that. But man, they're so desperate to get Conor a win, man. It's so transparent to me. It's like everybody can see what you're doing, but nobody gives a hell. Nobody gives a fuck, and they're just like, fuck it, put a camera in front of Conor and see what he can do. Now, if it ends up into a grappling extreme, because Tony's grappling is super funky, man. Like, that's if I'm a betting man. I bet all the fights. That's a fight I'm going to stay away from because, again, I don't know Tony's chin, and Conor only has to hit him once with that left hand to sleep him. But if they get tangled up somehow, Tony has some crazy submissions, man. And I know the UFC is pulling for this fight. It's just like when Conor fought Donald Cerrone. Like, he's being put in these positions to win. I believe that's the last time he's won a fight. So now they're going after Tony Ferguson, who's lost a whole bunch in a row. He just had a devastating knockout, but it'll be good TV, so it makes sense.
It will be good TV. I'll definitely watch. And then I've also heard people mention, I want to know your thoughts on this too, that if he gets the win over Tony or whoever it is, if he gets one win at welterweight, that could set him up to go straight to a potential title shot against Leon Edwards. Like, what do you think about that?
My facial expression says exactly what I think about that. Conor's won one fight out of his last 6, I think. Like, and you beat, man, it's just, I guess it's just the envious side of me. Like, man, like, throw me a fucking bone. I see, like, I know it's Conor McGregor and stuff like that, but dude, like, a title shot after beating a guy that, when's the last time Tony Ferguson won a fight, man? And again, it sounds like I'm being condescending and talking shit about these guys. I'm not. These guys are all phenomenal fighters. They're phenomenal athletes, but call a spade a spade. That's like when people talk, oh, you got cut from the UFC. Yeah, no shit. I couldn't win any fights. And that's what's happening with these guys too. And they keep bringing them back, and they need Conor desperately to win a fight now to keep him relevant, to make more money for the UFC, because when Conor fights Tony, I'm going to buy it. You're going to buy it. 100 million other people are going to buy the pay-per-view. They need that. If he loses to Tony, like, then what? Then where does Conor go?
I think that fight will be super fun. I think the buildup will be amazing. I think the show would actually be really funny with both of them. I think they're both pretty darn funny. Absolutely. And I gotta say, I don't know. I'll say this, like, from an equity standpoint, of course, I feel terrible for a lot of welterweights that would get passed over on that, and I'm sure they would be pissed off, and it sucks from a pure entertainment standpoint, though. And I mean, Conor has done amazing things. He does, to a lot of ways that you could spin it to say that it would be deserving of double champ, stuff like that. But all I can say is, from an entertainment standpoint, I'd love to see him get a title shot, whether it's not after this fight or after maybe one more. I think it'd be cool to see if he could go for the triple champ status. But again, I recognize all of those inequities that would kind of have to take place to make. But
not to interrupt you, but just going on the flip side of that, dude, it's like, say he wins and gets a title shot. What is the UFC anymore? What does rankings mean anymore?
Yeah,
like, it just throws the whole ranking system out of everywhere. The UFC is not credible. How can you be credible? You're taking an unranked guy, he beats a guy that has lost 5 in a row, now 5 or 6 in a row now, and then you just give him a title shot. It becomes a WWE entertainment then, and I think the UFC loses a lot of credibility and a lot of respect. And honestly, Bellator and the PFL, they're not far behind the UFC right now. They're doing big things, especially the PFL. They have those $1 million tournaments coming up. And, I talked to an inside source, a very legitimate inside source, and they're talking about in the next couple of years bumping it to $10 million. So that's something to think about too. You want to fight for the UFC and make 25 grand, or you want a shot at $1 million? You'll get less notoriety, but you get more money. I mean, a lot of those guys are making the switch right now to the PFL. And again, UFC obviously is the top of the top. but the PFL and Bellator aren't far behind. And if UFC keeps making mockeries of the divisions, like this would be a mockery of the division. It'd be a mockery of the top 5 in the world, the top best welterweights in the world. It's fucking disgusting. And I mean, one of these days, PFLs, I mean, they're right there, man. And UFC is going to shoot themselves in the foot if they continue to do this WWE antic bullshit.
That's a fair point, because then once you start swaying so much or basically getting away from the rankings and what should be happening in a meritocracy, it kind of makes the whole thing. It really does. You're right. It would mess up the credibility. That's crazy though. I never heard about this 10 million. That's wild.
Well, I don't know. It might not be public, but it's the goal. It's the goal of the company, and I know that for a fact. That's not a fighter telling me that. That's not. It doesn't matter who told it to me, but it's a legitimate source. And their goal, I'm not saying it's going to happen next year or the year after, but PFL's goal is to make it a $10 million tournament.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Okay, well, let's move on to the final topic. Is tangentially related to MMA, but it is the Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury fight that was announced a day or two ago. I think it's going to happen at the end of February 26th, something like that. I can't remember exactly. And I don't know. I just want to get your thoughts. I'll just say mine really quickly. I'm going to get the fight. I'm going to watch it. I'm fascinated by it, partially because of the Tommy Fury pulling out 2 times. And I want to see what goes down. But yeah, like, I want to get your thoughts as far as Jake Paul as a boxer. I know you mentioned to me too, like you're not super familiar with Tommy Fury's skill level, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Jake?
You know what? I tell you what, Jake won me over, man. If we had this conversation 2 years ago, I'd be like, oh, this guy's a character. Again, back to the WWE antics. Like, he's a character. Oh, he beat Ben Askren. Ooh, big deal. I'll beat Ben Askren, and I'm a 45-pounder. Like, Ben Askren can't box. But then he beat Tyrone Woodley, not once, but twice. I'm sold, man. Jake Paul is doing something for fighters that nobody at that point, there's been one other fighter. I'm going to mention it now. Mention it in a second. Jake Paul is advocating for.
Oh, I think we might have lost. Justin, can you hear me? Yeah, it's kind of a little choppy, but I can hear you.
There?
Oh, there you go. No, I think you're back now. All right, sorry. What were you saying about Jake Paul?
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm back. I was talking about Jake Paul. Like, I didn't like him at first, but he beat Tyrone Woodley. Oh, well, Tyrone's a wrestler. Tyrone has knocked out some of the best fighters in the world. Tyrone knocked out one of my good friends at Extreme Couture, Jay Haran, who to me is just an incredible fighter. He knocked him out bad. Like, this is a legit fighter. The guy, I don't know if it was him or his brother. They're high school wrestlers. I believe it was either him or his brother was a high school wrestling state champ. So they have an athletic background. They're not just coming off. It's not like who are those twin guys that have the Island Boys? Like, it's not like those guys transitioned to boxing. This guy's an athlete. He's played sports his life. He's transitioned to boxing. Keep in mind, he's rich too. When you're rich and you have nothing better to do but to train all day and hire the best nutritionists, hire the best coaches, hire the best training partners. It's not like me or you who we go into the gym and be like, hey, what classes can I take? No, this guy has the money to. He can hire anybody he wants, and he can train all day, all night. And not to mention, I don't believe he's in the USADA testing pool, so he can train 10 hours a day and recover and not even be sore the next day. So we have to take these things in consideration. Now, to the good part about Jake Paul, what I freaking love about him is he's an advocate for higher pay for fighters. He's an advocate for healthcare for fighters, insurance, life insurance for fighters. Now, there's only been one other fighter since to do this, and he's public about it, is Francis Ngannou. UFC offered him $8 million, a 3-fight contract, and $8 million to fight John Jones. He said that's good, but he needs 3 other things, and I believe it was health insurance, and it was something else, but there's 3 things that he demanded. And UFC wouldn't come, and that's why he didn't go through. If you can find out what they were, there's memes about it all over, about what he turned down, what he required to sign back to the UFC. And Jake Paul was the first person to do that. It was a fighter organization, like for the fighters, fighter representation. And Jake Paul was the first to do that. Now we get one more fighter like Francis Ngannou, another world-class fighter who is now pitching for the same thing. I'm about Jake Paul. I hope he beats Tommy Fury. I want him to. I don't know anything about Tommy Fury. I don't follow boxing except when it's Jake Paul or if it's are transitioning over. Man, I'm rooting for Jake Paul in this. I really want him to do well.
I am too. By the way, we have somebody in the live chat. Finley sent a couple messages. So he was saying, hey, you guys, he wants to see Jake Paul get knocked out. So just saying, hey, what's up, Finley? He was mentioning we're not interacting with the live chat. Hey, this is our second live stream. So we apologize for that. But hey, thank you for jumping on early. We appreciate it. Yeah, I definitely want to see Jake Paul win too. I gotta say, I'm actually a really big fan of Jake Paul. I didn't even know much about him. I really knew I've seen funny stuff from his brother before. Now entering into the world of boxing and the world of MMA sort of tangentially and doing all this stuff, I have mad respect for him. When I think about what he's doing, I sort of think he was just not into fighting. I mean, he had a wrestling background, but he came into the sport. It's like I try to think about it as if I all of a sudden was like, hey, I want to train really hard and try and have an amateur fight and a professional fight. And that's it's terrifying. So, I mean, for him to go in and do this and fight a guy like Tommy Fury, I think it's incredible. So I have mad respect for him. I want him to win, and I want him to have a MMA fight in the PFL. So I'm looking forward to all of that. But yeah, I can't wait for that, and I will be buying that, like I said.
Center Council. Yeah, dude, I agree. And you know what? The PFL, like I said, in nation, Ray Seffel being the president, Ray Seffel is one of the coaches at
Oh, I think we're losing you. All right, I think we may have lost Justin here. All right, well, this might be a perfect time to wrap up because we've gotten through all 4 topics that we wanted to discuss. So I don't know if we're having some Wi-Fi issues. But anyways, this is going to wrap up our second episode. This is the first time we used oh, there you are. You're back, Justin.
I'm back.
You kind of cut out for a bit. But I was saying to everybody, hey, we kind of ran through our 4 topics. So what do you think we close out for the day? And then we'll pick up with more news later in the week, I'm sure. But thank you. And I can't wait to see all these fights. And I can't wait for April coming up. But everybody, thank you so much. If you do like what you see and you want to be a part of us as we kind of continue to grow and learn and keep talking about the sport that we love so much, definitely hit that subscribe button. And if you like the video, click that like button. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we will see you in the next video. Take it easy.